Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Great presentation by Alana about the market trends. Clean cooling is the future, and natural refrigerants are the fastest way to clean cooling. And it's interesting to see how all of that is developing around the world. Now we're going to actually speak with a CEO or managing director, I think is the actual legal term that you have, legal title, but basically the boss at one of the leading manufacturers in our space, Andreas Meier. So he runs TEKO, a German player in this market, and was very German, and over the last years has really become a success story for Europe and beyond. And we're going to learn a bit more about that in a minute. Andreas has been with TEKO for 5-6 years now, a little bit more maybe. But prior to that, he was with GEA and also worked for Maekawa, a well-known player in the market on the industrial side. So I'd like to welcome Andreas.
Hi, Mark. Welcome to everybody from TEKO, Germany.
Yeah, I haven't seen you physically for about 2 years now, I think, but I seem to see you regularly online. So nice to see you again. Yeah, I am happy that you're here. How, you've been watching obviously the presentations from the previous presenters, from Colin, from Armin, and from Alana. Any reactions that you have just to kick it off?
Yeah, basically, what Ilana said and what Armin said and Colin before, it's going everything in the right direction. What Ilana said at the end, that there is a shortage on some components. It has nothing to do really with natural refrigerants. It's just a shortage on the whole market. If you want to now order a new service car in Germany, you have to say, don't give you delivery times because the microchips are just missing. And that is, we see the same everything, which has some controls inside is at the moment a problem on delivery times. And I can understand all the suppliers there because the market is just empty. And, it's just a market shortage, which is everywhere. It's not only to us. And of course, we see a material price increase because the copper price rise, the steel price rise. This is something which is due to the COVID situation and all the ports and harbors and the shipments is quite strange because even you don't get a container at the moment. When you get one, the price is 10 times like normally. But it's nothing to do really with natural refrigerants. There was a shortage before, but not really. So it's more a shortage in the whole market. So it doesn't matter.
But from a natural refrigerant perspective, it does mean that your costs are going up. Does that mean that you're also putting up your prices for your customers?
Unfortunately, we have to do now because if you talk the total price rise, we see that electrical components getting up around 10% over the year. Heat exchangers going up 10 to 15%. Steel going up to 25%, frames and so on. So we see everything is going up. So how is possible? You cannot keep by yourself. It's not possible. So of course we have to rise the prices. It's an unforeseen, it's a force majeure. Nobody can do anything. And we have to live with that. We hope that the price get down mid of next year, but before that, I don't see a big problem. But for the customers, I think the biggest thing is they need to get deliveries. And we are still on track, but let's see what's coming up because we have a big stock. But, nobody knows what's happening in the near future. If you talk to somebody in the market, everybody says, yeah, it will go on until mid of next year. So that is what everybody's guessing in the market. There will be a shortage. But of course, the shortage is also because due to everybody in the market, everybody is putting in a lot of orders, even more than normally, even on 2 different suppliers, because everybody wants to get supplies. So we have our natural wave coming by ourselves because we are ordering everywhere, like everybody's doing. So that means you're getting up. The suppliers are having a big wave in front of them, which is maybe not a real true wave in some points. Okay. Let's see what is happening, but generally the market is very good. So we see a big rise in the market. So this year, our order intake was 40% up in August. 40. But now with the shortage and also shortage on capabilities in the production space, so we will not end up with 40% plus end of the year because now we're already filled up until the end of the year, more or less. There's not much space anymore. So orders we take in is already for next year because we are just full. So it's good and bad. But if you're sales, of course it's bad. If you're in production, you're already on the limit. So it's something where we have to cover.
And are you scaling up your production in order to meet for that growing demand? Or you think it's,
as it is possible, because we have an actual production facility in Frigopol in Austria. But the problem is to get the people which are able to do that. So you need to train people for 1 year at least, that they are able to fulfill our needs, what we need in our production.
Okay.
And it's a moment here in our region, you don't get anybody. And it's quite hard to find people on the market which actually want to work in a workshop. This is a problem we are having. Maybe in other regions it's different, but this is what's happening here. We don't get really workers. So let's see what's coming up. So we have to get more efficiency and have some new tools, to have different production layouts to overcome that hurdle and to make it more simplified racks to be faster to produce. So I think this is more the keys than to scale up people.
Okay, so that's interesting. So because of the shortages and the challenges you face, you're trying to also simplify the actual racks that you're selling. And how are you doing that? In what ways, if you're able to say, how are you simplifying the process? I guess that's also reducing the number of materials, therefore the costs. Is it improving the performance, or is it maintaining the performance? What are the consequences on that respect?
It's performance is the same, but you're not fulfilling every customer request.
Okay.
So try to more standardize, because otherwise it's a shortage. You can just tell your customer, if you want to have it like that, delivery time is 16, 18 weeks. Otherwise you are at 8 weeks. So this is something we need to do. And I think the whole market, because otherwise you're accelerating, and you don't have the supplies, that is, it's a pro and con. Yeah. But, I guess the shortage is not on a long term. I think it hurts everybody in our industry. I think the biggest hurt is for the control companies. All of them, I know they have a really big issue. And I really got my hat for them, because they are really doing also great work to, to manage the supply chain, to everybody is able, end user, to have the supplies. But I think it's tough for them. I think they have the toughest time. But what is for me very important is what Armin said also, that due to the reach, the PFAS is coming in and all these things going together and squeezing more and more the F gases, HFOs, to come to the point where it's not suitable to use them anymore. And I think this is where we are all coming together and say where we want to go. And this is for me, of course, what you said, cleaning up cooling. So it's more going for a nice atmosphere and try to be there. And what we all see, I think a lot of people mentioned already. And, I personally don't like this Greta stuff. I'm sure, sorry, because this is something. No,
I know it can annoy some people. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. But, from the business perspective, what we see now is that a lot of really cash is coming into our industry, because a lot of companies are interested to invest in our industry. And I see a lot of companies being bought or, authorized or whatever, because hedge funds are coming in our industry, because they see there is a fortune in the future to go ahead, because this market is really growing and driving. And in Europe, we are just the beginning, as we already, I think, discussed a long time, because all the rest will follow. And this is where the market trend is going. And if I look on the European manufacturers, all of them are really market leading natural refrigerants. Coming from the control companies, Wurm, Carel, Danfoss, they are leading in the controls for natural refrigerants. And the same is happening on the compressor side, the heat exchanger. So this is European manufacturers which drive this innovation. And I think it's very useful also for the EU committee to know that we are a strong industry which is growing, and we are coming from Europe, basically.
Yeah, I think that will be a message that will definitely be communicated tomorrow on the EU F-gas panel, because I remember 10 years ago when we were doing our Atmosphere Europes in Brussels, and there were a variety of stakeholders that were saying, oh, naturals will never work. They're inefficient. They're too costly. They don't work. They only work in Scandinavia, nowhere else. And it's going to kill jobs. What you're basically saying is that opposite. You're a success story. You were a smaller player. You've expanded. You've grown. You're profitable. You're growing. You've got a full order book right now. You could take on more business. It's just you're limited by capacity right now. And you're expanding outside Europe. And you're a European company innovating, and you're a success story, right? And so this is a message to the regulators in Brussels. You can do this again. There's so many other segments that could be that could follow the example of commercial refrigeration.
Yes.
Right. And,
you know,
and we shouldn't listen to the, sorry, go ahead.
We made the transformation before, but you just did F-gas racks. This was our core business, you know, we transformed ourselves because now we are doing still 5% F-gases because this is still sometimes requested, but our production is not any made for that. So on the F-gases, it's just a big effort to do it because the volume is so low. But this is something which needs to be transformed. And I think we are not the only company, and there are competitors out which have the same in the market. And I think we all together can grow in Europe quite substantially. And I think every company which is in refrigeration, which is focused on natural refrigerants, which I think in Europe now is nearly all of the refrigeration OEMs which are pushing for that, having a strong growth because of that. So we should, of course, accelerate that. And this is, of course, success story for Europe. It's not only for us, you know, it's, I think all of us work on that. And it's also to position ourselves where we want to be in some years. You know, today I was thinking about, you know, besides this greater stuff, you know, of course, there is some rights inside, you know. If I was looking back, when I was a child, I was born in the Bavarian forest, and we every year had 1-2 meters snow. I was skiing all day. And in all the skiing resorts, you cannot ski anymore. There is no snow anymore. The last years, it's not possible to have any snow there. So, you know, we see the climate change is coming, and so we have to do something. And this is also a business, you know, it's not only that we are green or whatever, but of course, it's also a commercial business. And this is, I think, a very important message, because we are here as a company not to be nice and green, because we also want to earn money. That is also the core interest of every legal entity, more or less, you know, to earn money. So that's why we are here.
Yes. Yeah, no, completely. I just, it's interesting that you were making money from dirty cooling before. I like this dirty versus clean cooling. I think that's a very way to simplify it, because basically that's the challenge we have. You either go the dirty way, like dirty energy, or clean energy. Same thing, dirty cooling. Do we carry on with dirty cooling, or do we go clean? It's that simple. And we got a clear choice to make it this decade. So how did you, what was the thing that clicked? Why did you go from dirty to clean if you were making money from dirty?
Yeah, because you see what's coming up in the future. And we also had, to be honest, end users play a very important role in that. And some end users pushed for that 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I remember our company started basically with Aldi South, who was implementing CO2 at that time on a large scale. And then other ones follow also. So you have to recognize that business. And I remember I was Geventa, when was it? 2012. And our booth was only natural refrigerants. We had a propane, we had an ammonia, and we had a CO2. And everybody was looking when I said,
"You're crazy.
Doesn't make sense, huh?" But unfortunately, it pays off. Huh? And it's also the long view of my colleague. You know, my colleague is also MD, Edgar Holzhäuser, he's not here today. He's on holiday, so greetings to him if he's listening. And he made at that time was a choice to go there. So it's a long-term, you know, vision to see what's coming up. That the F-gas regulation is coming, and you know, it's only the first step.
So what's the next step? So you said the first step. That's the one from 2015. Yeah. We're now in that market with the regulation. Now the regulators, and we'll hear about that tomorrow, are updating it, and there's a lot of expectation around that. Okay, and that will be a key focus for the coming 2 years in the European market, but also globally, because we know Europe leads in this area. So everyone's paying attention. So what's step 2? Where do you see it? Where's the next wave of innovation? Where are you trying to position your business?
I think it's, you know, we have, like we discussed the last time already, you have so many applications with natural refrigerants where we can accelerate the know-how we are having now to other businesses. You know, we can talk about industrial heat pumps, we can talk about normal heat pumps, but it's not our core business. You know, we can talk about small commercial units, like one is just listening here, you know. So we're coming from 0.9 kilowatt up to megawatts. So megawatts have been done already with ammonia a long, long time. But now you see that also other refrigerants, either propane or CO2 is coming into the game, and, you know, having more commercialized, let's say, advantages on some applications. So not on every application. So for every application, you have the right refrigerant, which is natural. So there is a competition between natural refrigerants. So this is what we all like. And
Yes.
so is the expectation. And of course, the next big boom will be the air conditioning field, because this is by far the biggest one also, where we're talking about.
So
And,
air conditioning. So you see a future where natural refrigerants could take the air conditioning market for buildings, for example.
Yeah, of course. If you see now what is the share of propane chillers in the market, is still 1%, 2% in the market maximum. So you see the market is so huge, and it's only 1-2% on the propane. But there is other refrigerants which can take up also that market. If we talk about CO2 or whatever, it depends, on the location and application, what is the best one. But I think there is a big growth also. And if we can attack this 1 or 2%, an additional to propane with other naturals like ammonia or CO2, this 1-2% is already enough to fill my factory for some years, just to be very clear. is a big thing. Eh? So I think the market is huge, and we see so much applications like everybody now. And for me, it seems like that the big ones are waking up slowly.
You think so?
Yeah, waking up slowly, because they recognize it's not only F-gas regulation. Oh, fuck, there's also REACH coming into the game. Oh, we are in between. So nobody likes to be a sandwich position. Huh? So maybe some like, but most of the people don't like a sandwich position. So if you come, there is a squeeze. And finally, what is left is lateral.
Yeah.
And this is where we all should go, because then you are future-proof and you are safe and you don't have to bother around. Efficiency is there. Like Armin said, efficiency is there. So why not?
Yeah, this double squeeze, like, there's an expectation that UF gas will be more ambitious and will push towards lower GWP faster across many applications, including air conditioning. But the new bit, the REACH, because that's another policy area handled by Europe in terms of all these different chemicals that we use on daily life. And HFOs have been identified as a risk. And there are some countries that are looking into that very closely. And this is the big story of the summer, which we're going to hear about tomorrow in more detail. But that has the potential to ban HFOs, literally ban them in 2025. So in Europe, okay, not the rest of the world, but in Europe. So that's a big deal.
Yes.
And the fact that there's that possibility should be a serious concern for end users.
Yes.
Yeah, and the chemical guys, and some of them are listening to this right now. We know, so fine. They'll come out with their usual PR saying, "Oh, it's all good and everything," but more and more people are saying the opposite.
The end users should make marketing on their natural approach. If I would have an office building and I would rent out something, I would go for zero emission, to get the people in. Yeah. You're not talking for the lowest rent, because the difference in a rent is, if you go for zero emission, is peanuts on a whole building. You know what we're talking about. So there is so much opportunities, and the marketing is there. I was in Colombia 2 weeks ago. In a supermarket, you see advertising said, these goods are refrigerated with natural refrigerant, CO2. Say, have it on a display, a big screen, to show the customers why they do it.
Great. Andreas, I'm going to cut you off because we got 1 minute to go before we're cut off. So I got a question from Louisa, which I want to raise to you. She says, how long did it take for TEKO to go from a mainly F-gas business to just 5% of its business?
Basically, it was within 4 years. So 4 years ago, it was 30% natural, and then it switched dramatically. But again, due to the end users, which take the focus, and the risk assessment of the end users basically was the driving factor, because they see that the risk assessment for the next 10, 5, 15 years to have leakages with non-natural refrigerants, the costs will go up and the risk is too high.
Thank you, Andreas. We're literally going to be cut off now. We're going into lunch break. There's a technomercial by Castell next that my colleague Ilana will handle. So see you in an hour or so for the end user panel. Enjoy lunch.